Tepe is a broke orphan who becomes an overnight billionaire after inheriting his grandfather's fortune. However, when the old man forces him to find a wife, he rizzes up 4 freaky baddies who all turn out to be throat goats, and they start competing in Freak Olympics to make him choose one of them as his wife. On his way to meet his grandfather, Tepe stops at the graveyard to pay respect to his deceased parents when he notices some gooners harassing a girl named Charlotte and immediately gets on his scooter to stop them. As butler Alfred joins him, Tepe notices that Charlotte is about to fall off her carriage and goes after her just in time to grab her hand. Then suddenly, the carriage's tire breaks and both Tepe and Charlotte go flying into the forest below. Later, Tepe wakes up and notices his hand resting on Charlotte's factory-installed safety pillows. Before he satisfies his inner P. Diddy, Charlotte wakes up and greets him casually as if they didn't just escape death. Tepe gets nervous because she already knows he was diddling her melons, but she says they're now even because he saved her life. Later, as they meet Alfred again, Charlotte suddenly kisses Tepe before joining her butler, leaving the guy stunned. Tepe then checks his phone and realizes he missed an important meeting with his grandfather Ishin. Once he gets to his building, looking like an average Valorant sweat, the guards refuse to let him in. Luckily, Ishin arrives and tells him to let the boy go. Joining his grandfather, Tepe reveals his plans to avenge his parents, but the old man tells him that it will only continue the cycle of revenge. Tepe gets upset and asks the man why he isn't sad about losing his daughter, but he says he still has a grandson. Ishin then asks Tepe why he looks like a homeless wreck, and Tepe says he rescued someone on the way here, proud of him for being a real man. He asks Tepe not to change his clothes and wear the dirt as a medal of honor. The old man then takes him to a party, where he introduces Tepe as the successor to his billion-dollar company, the Arima Group, which comes as a shock to him. Ishin also tells everyone why he's covered in dirt, and when Tepe reveals he actually saved a girl named Charlotte, the old man becomes even more proud because she's actually a princess. After Tepe changes into a presentable attire, he asks Ishin why he made him his successor without asking him first. Ishin explains that his daughter was game-ended because she was his first successor, so by announcing a new successor, he plans to bait out the murderer. He then tells Tepe to learn how to deal with people and make allies, so later in the party, when some lowlives try to win favors with him, Tepe tries his best to hide his frustration under a smile. However, an influential man named Vincent rescues him from the bootlickers and introduces him to his younger daughter Maria. However, as soon as Vincent leaves, Tepe is surrounded by people again. Later, as his personal maid, Yu brings him tea. He spots a girl outside the window practicing with her sword. Excited, he runs outside and sees her dancing with the weapon, calling her the perfect sparring partner. Without hesitation, the girl starts swinging towards him, and Tepe just barely keeps up with her. Their duel is halted upon the arrival of Ishin and Vincent, with the latter describing them as a perfect match. Ishin then discloses that this young woman is Sylvia, Vincent's elder daughter, who also happens to be his fiancée. On the ride back home, Tepe falls asleep on Yu's premium cushions, prompting Ishin to ask if she has gotten used to her new environment. Yu responds that she feels nothing but gratitude, but Ishin is worried Tepe might not feel the same as her. Yu believes Tepe will come around because the path has already been laid out for him. Ishin is still not convinced, but even then, he asks Yu to watch over this idiot, no matter what choices he makes. Once they reach their destination, Tepe takes a break from drooling on Yu's melons, and Ishin tells him that this giant mansion in front of him is his new home. After he leaves, Yu tells Tepe that she is now his personal maid and opens the front door, revealing a full harem of other maids who have all lined up to get back shots from him. When they start calling him master, Tepe feels a little weird and kindly asks them to just address him by his name. Yu believes doing so will set a bad example for others, so they continue addressing him in a more formal manner. Yu then takes him to his giant room with fancy furniture and a soft carpet and asks him to use the dial phone if he needs someone to jork his wee. After getting comfy in his bed, Tepe thinks about Princess Charlotte and their 5 seconds of cheap romance when they were falling into the forest. His thoughts then drift to Sylvia dancing like a ballerina with her sword and how she was so quick with it that even he couldn't keep up. Later, Yu returns with a glass of milk, so he asks her about his engagement with Sylvia. He mentions how he was engaged to her without permission and questions if this is normal in the rich people's world. Yu replies that Ishin thinks highly of both him and Sylvia, but Tepe doesn't know anything about her. Yu tells him she's a member of a high-ranking aristocratic family and also very skilled at fencing. Tepe, however, is more interested in her character because that is the most important thing in marriage according to him. He mentions that something about Sylvia felt like she was sad, then turns to you and asks if he even has the option to say no. You tells him can, because decisions based on the circumstances presented to him are his own choice to make. The next day, Tepe gets royal treatment from dozens of his maids, and Yu joins him as his personal attendant to school. On the way, he tells you he used to go to school on a scooter before, but Yu strictly says no because she's worried he'll fall. Tepe argues he can ride well, but when Yu refuses again, he suggests they use Ishin's money to create a bike that will never fall. Later, he gets a bird's eye view of his new school, Shuhao Academy, which is spread over miles, much to his shock. Once he reaches the front gate, people immediately start chattering about him, and Yu warns him that he is somewhat of a celebrity here due to his ties with the Arima Group. When he asks how they know about it, Yu points to the giant Arima logo on the limo he just rode in, overwhelmed with all the attention. Tepe runs away like a little bicon and ends up in a fancy restaurant, which happens to be the open cafeteria. While processing everything, he bumps into a girl named Seika, who is irritated and starts scolding him for being a clumsy idiot. Her friend Erika warns him not to mess with the social club baddies, and her other friend Ayano tells him to apologize. However, Seika tells them it's fine because it's partially her fault too. She then tells Tepe that having an open collar is against the rules, and he must be civil if he wants to survive here. When she starts checking the rest of his dress, the girls tell him to be careful because they don't know what kind of man he is. Seika then realizes he's never seen him before, so Tepe tells them he just transferred today. She then tells him to remember her before walking away, and Tepe is wondering if it's just her or every baddie in this school has a screw loose. That's when Yu shows up and takes him to the principal's office, where everyone treats him like he's the president. Later, Yu explains that Ishin has made a big donation to the academy, which explains what happened in the office. He then notices everyone is staring at her, similar to how he was treated at the party. Even in class, the students are drooling over him, and during break, a guy named Mezu introduces himself. Before he can get a word in, every pick-me-thotty in his class swarms Tepe and begs him to subscribe to her OnlyFans. Princess Charlotte happens to pass by his classroom and sees him surrounded, which immediately lifts her mood. Amid the chaos, she slips into the crowd and covers his eyes from the back, asking him to make a guess. Tepe says she's just transferred here, but when Charlotte presses her cushions against his back, he immediately recognizes her. Charlotte is so happy to see his savior again that she jumps into him, and the next thing he knows, he's on top of her, ready to repopulate the planet. In the meantime, Sylvia is walking through the halls, voicing her frustration over getting engaged to a bum like Tepe. Despite that, she wishes to greet him and enters his class, only to find him on top of Charlotte. She immediately runs away in panic, leaving Tepe to reevaluate his life choices. After class, Ayano tells Seika that Tepe is from the Arima Group, which makes her frustrated because she did not treat him properly on their first meeting. After taking the heat out on Erika, she tells Ayano that she has no intention of sucking up to Tepe, so she'll keep treating him like the brat that he is. Meanwhile, Tepe is having tea with Charlotte, who advises him to join the society club so he can make new friends. When he spots Sylvia leaving the academy, Charlotte asks if he knows her, and he shrugs it off, saying it's nothing serious. They're just locked in an engagement. Charlotte becomes visibly sad upon hearing this, and Tepe tells her his chances aren't very high with her, especially since Sylvia saw them being freaky in class. Charlotte asks him to make it up to Sylvia, but even before he can think about it, she drags him down to the fencing hall to play matchmaker. They decide to watch her practice, but unlike last night, she appears to be clumsy with the sword, making Tepe think she is lonely. He believes no one here is on par with her skills, so she has to hold back, which makes her feel sad. Charlotte believes this is the perfect chance for Tepe to win her over and nominates him to spar with Sylvia. She immediately challenges him to a duel, and Tepe happily accepts. News of their duel quickly circulates, prompting Yu to make an urgent call while Seika and her friends are heading to the fencing hall. As the duel begins, the two clash swords, but Sylvia suddenly stops and declares that winning in her own style won't make her happy. Thus, she decides to forget about the fencing rules and proposes they fight in dojo style. Just then, Yu arrives with a fancy sword and gives it to Tepe so he can duel more freely. As they squat off again, they both have a smile on their face this time, and they set some ground rules before clashing again. Tepe then takes the IA stance, which lets him attack in the same motion as drawing the sword and resheathing it. Sylvia recalls their last duel and knows Tepe is a master of single strike attacks, so this might end very quickly. As the coin hits the floor, they both charge at each other with super speed, and in mere seconds, they are at each other's throats. Sylvia believes it is a draw, but Tepe says she was a little bit faster, and he would have been dead in a real duel. He then extends his hand, saying they are practically strangers, but he hopes to get to know her better by dueling her. Sylvia asks if he plans to go against Ishin, but Tepe replies that he can decide that for later because it'll be too boring to make a decision now. Hearing this, accepts the handshake with a smile, and Charlotte comes running in for a hug, happy that she was able to mend their relationship. Meanwhile, Seika is not too happy about how this turned out and storms out of the hall, wishing Sylvia had put a few extra holes in his body. Back inside, Charlotte asks Tepe to show her his sword, but he tells her no because it's dangerous. However, she ends up on top of him again, which frustrates Sylvia. When he asks her to get off, she instead starts bouncing on his joystick, and Yu watches from a distance, happy that her master is finally getting some action. On his way back, Tepe asks Yu about the society club, and she says it's a place where the school's most popular people come together. He asks her why she isn't in any club, and she says it's because people will look down on her, which will bring shame to Tepe's name. Tepe says this is complete nonsense, but he decides to check it out anyway. The next day, Sylvia and Charlotte take him to the club room, which is actually a club building. Much to his shock, once inside, the girls introduce him to the rest of the club, and Tepe gets another run-in with Mezu. When he tries introducing himself again, Seika and her friends punch him out of the frame and ask what he's doing here. When they tell him to leave, Sylvia steps up and sternly tells them to mind their business. However, Seika says she's noticed how Sylvia wags her tail for Tepe and questions what her connection is to this man. Sylvia says their parents are friends, which is why she's helping Tepe get accustomed to this place. Seika then accuses him of diddling two respectable members of their club, but Sylvia once again shuts her down, telling her not to make baseless accusations. Seika argues it's her job to protect the club as she is the head representative, which is why she cannot accept Tepe into the club. She tells Tepe to fix himself and get in line like everyone else. And Erika even points out that his real father was a mere soba shop owner before he got adopted by Ishin. Tepe loudly tells her not to involve his parents, but this gives Seika another opportunity to diss him. She then tells him to change his lifestyle and become someone worthy before she even thinks of joining their club. Infuriated, Tepe takes on the challenge of showing his worth, so Seika invites him to the party next week, where he can prove himself. Tepe tells her he will become such a Rizzler that she will drop her plot armor every time she sees him, but this is exactly the type of attitude that she wants him to fix. Later, he joins the girls for a tea where he perfects his table manners, and at night, Yu helps him walk like he's packing 8 inches. The next day, the girls catch him yawning, so he vows never to do it again. Afterward, he practices how to dance like a noble with Charlotte, but after she kisses him as a reward, his joystick starts pointing north. That night, as Yu makes coffee for him, he tells her he won't be able to sleep because he has so much to do. This reminds him of the time his mother made him coffee so he could stay up at night to study for his exams. Cherishing the memories he made with his parents, he tells Yu that he came here not knowing what he would do, but in no time, he got caught up in the society club mess. Ishin had told him to make allies first, but he isn't sure if he is doing a good job or not. Yu believes otherwise because he already has allies like her, Charlotte, and Sylvia. She also tells him that she grew up in an orphanage built by Ishin, who brought him up and made her a maid. He told her it's okay if she can't do everything right away, as long as she begins, she can gradually make progress from there. He also told her that once she was confident in her abilities, she should come and serve the Arima family, and now she is here thanks to Vishin. Tepe believes becoming his servant is not the flex she thinks it is, but Yu believes he is capable of great things, and she feels honored to accompany him on his journey to success. She then apologizes for speaking too much, but Tepe thanks her instead because this is the push he needed to understand his true potential. For the next day, Tepe continues to work hard on his manners, while Seika keeps a close eye on him. At the roof, he joins Charlotte for another dance practice, but things get a little hard down south when he bumps into her bouncy castle. Seeing this, Seika doesn't get why he's so set on joining the club, but then she overhears a few guys talking about how she can't stand Tepe. This makes her realize people see her as a villain here, so she starts wondering if she should change her approach. Back at the rooftop, while Tepe is still recovering from his rising North Pole, Sylvia and Yu show up to teach him his table manners. However, when he fails to improve his technique, he and Sylvia start thinking about having another fencing duel. That's when it clicks with Yu that Tepe is struggling because he's been forced to learn everything at once, so she suggests a different approach. On the big day, Tepe shows up with Sylvia and Charlotte, who are both excited to see the results of his training. Seika then opens the front door and invites them in, while Yu eagerly waits outside. Once inside, Seika gives a speech and welcomes everyone to the annual ball, starting it off with a music performance. As the party kicks off, Tepe blends in with everyone and even pulls off a smooth dance performance with Charlotte. Seeing him change so drastically in a week, Seika starts feeling something in his heart for him, but quickly shakes it off. At the end of the ball, Seika tells Tepe that she is certainly impressed by his manners, but she cannot yet allow him to join the club. When Charlotte asks what else he needs to do, Seika says he now has to host a party in 1 week, and that will decide his future at the club. Later, Seika is painting in her art room, but no matter how hard she tries, she cannot get Tepe out of her mind. Meanwhile, Yu gives Tepe a motorbike that he requested the other day, and the manufacturers explain that this prototype will never fall. Tepe remembers he just said it on a whim, but Yu reminds her that she listens to everything he says and takes it very seriously. He's then asked to kick the bike as hard as possible, and when he does, it springs back into balance. But he rejects it because it's uglier than your mum. In school, Tepe visits Charlotte and Sylvia at the club hall to discuss what to do for his next challenge. But the man has no clue because he's never attended rich people's parties before. All he's ever been part of are ditty parties, but they are very different from what he experienced here. He then notices Erika and Ayanov sitting at the next table and wonders why Seika is not joining them. He jokingly asks if she's neglecting her duties, and Eriko immediately jumps to her defense, reminding him that he's still an ugly Neanderthal who roams around her without permission, so he shouldn't question others. They then reveal Seika is the only heir of the Phoenix Group, and she's one of the most prominent artists and a model for a prestigious designer brand called Saint Rose. Tepe is amazed by her accomplishments and says she has every right to act more arrogant, but the girls tell him she isn't the type to toot her own horn. Tepe says he would actually clap her if she just shut up, but she enters the hall just then and tells him not to talk behind her back. She then calls for Mezu, who slides in quicker than your mom sliding into the inbox of dudes half her age. When Mezu starts acting like he has an extra chromosome, she threatens to crack his walnuts if he messes up, making Tepe wonder what she's talking about. She refuses to share it with him, but Mezu discloses that Seika has asked her to attend the event for Saint Rose's new product launch tomorrow. After Seika imprints him on the wall, she explains that Mezu is only invited for the interview, where he will be asked about her school life and her relationship with her schoolmates. Mezu joins her again and promises to put up a good front for her, but when he keeps yapping non-stop, she sends him flying to the wall once again. On his way back, Tepe asks Yu why Seika hates him so much, but when she says Seika has nothing personal against her, he starts to wonder if her problem is with the Arima Group instead. Yu suggests he asks Ishin about this, so he tells the driver to take him to the old man's place. Once there, Tepe tells him he's taking things slow at school and even managed to befriend Sylvia, though he is far from getting the pass to her backdoors. Ishin then tells him to get to the point, so Tepe asks if he knows of a girl named Seika, which sparks an interesting reaction from Ishin. The next day, while he's in class, Yu brings in a letter, and Tepe wonders how he can give this to Seika, given she's always ready to chop his sausage. Just then, Mezu arrives with a terrible flu, but even when he is in a terrible state, he powers through it because he still has to attend the interview at the product launch. However, his condition worsens during the day, so much so that he goes out cold. After school, Tepe arrives at Mezu's place with the letter, where Seika gives a brilliant speech to many eager customers. During her speech, she spots Tepe in the crowd and drags him back to the changing room, where she learns Mezu is in the infirmary and cannot be here. Since she has no time to find a replacement, she asks Tepe to step up and leaves the rest in his hands. With that, Seika changes into her modeling outfit and takes a walk on stage, stunning everyone with her looks. Afterwards, she takes Tepe to the interview room, where they are forced to act like friends for the pictures. Before the interview, the reporter apologizes because she knows Tepe is not used to having a camera in his face, but Seika forces him to say it's okay. The reporter then asks him about Seika being the head of the society club, and once again, she forces him to compliment her. He's also asked about Seika's social club, but since he has no idea about it, Seika herself tells them that it is there to bridge the gap between the teachers and the students. When Tepe is asked what kind of impression Seika gives at school, and despite her best attempts to control his words, Tepe says what he wants to. He explains that Seika is a no-nonsense leader who often pushes her own ideas, which leads to arguments, but people still follow her because they know she's a hard worker and super reliable. He also adds that Seika is extremely selfless and doesn't care about personal gain because her main focus is the betterment of the school. Even when she is bossy at times, she has the natural ability to lead, which is why people follow her. As he delves into her accomplishments, Seika is both relieved and happy, and slowly lifts her foot, signaling that she trusts him. However, she goes back to being a brat during dinner, but Tepe tells her he knows why she hates the Arima Group so much. Ishin told him that the Phoenix Group, owned by Seika's grandpa, used to be affiliated with Arima as an organizer of their events Back then, Isshin was solely focused on his work and neglected his family, so his wife started getting pumped by Seika's grandfather, which made him so furious that he kicked her out and even removed the Phoenix Group from the list of his affiliates. Seika asks why he is bringing it up, so Tepe says he heard she wanted to open a store in the Arima department but was rejected. Seika then reveals Isshin called her stores vulgar on national television, which almost ruined her reputation, so she is frustrated that Isshin still holds a grudge against her family. Seika says she will grow on her own and expose him to the world, but Tepe hands her the letter he's been carrying all day. When she reads it, she learns that it has the signature of the director of the Arima Group. He also tells her that Isshin feels sorry for what he did to Seika's grandfather, but it happened so long ago that he doesn't know how to apologize. Additionally, if Isshin were to change the decision he made years ago, it wouldn't look good for the company. So instead, he wants the newer generation to bury the hatchet. To make things right, Tepe offers to sell Seika's products in the Arima department stores, which lifts her mood. She immediately agrees to the deal, but even then, she tells him he still has to host a party if he wants to join the club. However, she is really happy and even raises a glass to their newfound partnership, and thus, they officially become friends. Later, he breaks the news to Charlotte and Sylvia, who are both proud of his progress and eager to help him host a party. Meanwhile, Seika is in her art room, still thinking of what to draw when she suddenly gets an idea and finishes her work. The next day, Charlotte is heading to school in her carriage when she pulls out a charm from her bag. Alfred immediately tells her it's a charm for childbirth and advises her not to become too cultured while they're in the land of censorship. Meanwhile, Tepe is heading to school in his limo, and Yu praises him for performing so well yesterday. Tepe asks if she's trying to get laid by sucking up to her, but she's just doing her job of supporting him. At school, Mezu swarms him and asks if he has any plans for the holidays, and Yu speaks on his behalf that he is free. Mezu then says he wants to repay him for subbing during the interview and offers to help him host the party. He then says something in Tepe's head, and even though Tepe thinks it's a bad idea, Mezu assures him that it will work out. As they are discussing their plans discreetly, Charlotte suddenly shows up and asks Tepe if he's free for the holidays. Afterwards, she visits Sylvia at the club hall and asks for her permission to have Tepe, but Sylvia asks why she needs her approval in the first place. Charlotte reminds her that she is engaged to Tepe, but Sylvia is far from accepting him as her fiancé. Charlotte then tells her she plans to hang out with Tepe without Alfred's permission, so she wants Sylvia to cover up for him in case Alfred calls her. Hearing the commotion, Erika and Ayano call Tepe a pig, but Seika actually defends him, saying Charlotte might be pushing Tepe into doing something he doesn't want. That night, Vincent notices that Sylvia is quiet and asks if she got into a fight with Tepe, but she claims she doesn't talk much anyway. However, Maria points out that Sylvia has been yapping about Tepe ever since they got engaged, which annoys her. Vincent is glad she's accepted Tepe as her fiancé, but Sylvia claims he is just a friend who studies swordsmanship like she does. She also mentions that she won't be able to return to her homeland if she accepts Tepe, but her father tells her that their kingdom is a mess, and he wants her to live a happy life in a peaceful country. He kindly suggests she forget about going back and live here, so Sylvia leaves the table to think about it. Meanwhile, Charlotte is trying on different outfits, and when Alfred asks where she is going, she tells him she's visiting Sylvia's house. However, Alfred believes she's actually going to see Tepe and warns her not to get pumped and dumped by that bum. Just then, she receives a call from Sylvia, who suddenly forgets how to speak and tells Charlotte to take care of Tepe before ending the call. The next day, Tepe and Charlotte meet up for their supposed date, and Charlotte says she chose this spot because she wanted to feel normal. However, she then reveals they're going to Osaka on a plane, and that's where the normality ends. Once there, she says she wanted to go somewhere away from her butler and guards, but Tepe says guards are necessary for a princess. However, she strictly forbids him from calling her a princess, but when Tepe asks if she's really safe without guards, she says she expects him to protect her. Following that, they spend several hours going through the city, having an amazing time overall. While passing through the food street, Tepe learns Charlotte has never had takoyaki before, so he quickly gets some for her. Later, she asks him if he has chefs at home, but Tepe grew up as a commoner, so he tells her his mother did all the cooking. Charlotte admits meal made by a mother is better than any food in the world, and hopes she can try Tepe's mother's cooking. Before he can say anything, she gets distracted by the Ferris wheel and runs off, so he goes after her. Once on the ride, Charlotte happily says Tepe must love his mother a lot, and Tepe says he really did. However, both his mother and his father died the same day, so now he lives alone. The mood suddenly changes, and Charlotte tells him that even though they are no longer alive, they still live in his heart, and he must not forget what he feels for them. As the two share a moment, Charlotte suddenly starts to feel cold, and Tepe tells him how winters are spent in Japan. She calmly tells him that she is looking forward to it, and when winters come, he wants Tepe to educate her on the culture. After the two pinky promise on it, Charlotte suddenly asks him if he's going to marry Sylvia, and he says he is not sure. Charlotte reveals that she used to be best friends with her when their countries got along, and Sylvia was very stubborn back then. When she lost her mother in an accident, she was so innocent that she wrote letters to God asking him to give her mother back, and it was so touching that it made his father cry. Seeing his tears, she hugged him and assured him mommy would come back soon, so Vincent gave her a locket with her mom's picture in it. Knowing everyone's stories, Tepe says that even when he grew up poor, he was less lonely than all of the nobles. Soon after, he gets an idea for what kind of party he will be hosting, and he thanks Charlotte for opening his mind. Charlotte then suddenly hugs him from the back, and after a few seconds of silence, she makes him promise that he will remember her, similar to how he remembers his parents. When Tepe asks where this is coming from, she apologizes for saying something so strange and blames it on the weather. The next day, Tepe shares the idea with his friends, and they are all eager to see him in action. Later, as everyone gathers at the subway, Tepe arrives with a megaphone and introduces himself as the host of this part. He explains that everyone here would lodge at a hot spring, so when Sylvia asks why, he says it is because every mid-tier anime must have a hot spring episode to bait the degenerates. Later, Charlotte and Sylvia get confused over how to cross a ticket gate, so Seika demonstrates how to do it while flexing that her passport is stronger than America's economy. While on the train, Charlotte and Sylvia mention they have traveled a lot across continents as royal emissaries, which makes Mezu feel left out. After the ride, they finally reach their destination, a Japanese-themed resort with a built-in hot spring. After the girls are shown to their room, Yu continues to follow Tepe until he tells her to join the others. She says she is just a maid and does not deserve to share a room with them, but when Yu asks if she wants to live with the boys instead, she quietly goes back to the women's room. Later, shares his plans with the boys, and they all agree that it will make a wonderful party. As they start drooling over peeping on the girls in the hot spring, one of them points out that it might get them in trouble, but Tepe tells them to leave it to him. Being the master of degeneracy, Tepe imagines himself walking into the women's hot spring by accident and believes the girls would be welcoming towards his advances. Hearing this plan, the boys all shift into super sausage mode and make him their master, who will lead them to the Garden of Eden. In the girls' room, Seika says she will beat the boys to death if they peek in the shower, and Sylvia agrees while flexing her sword. They then notice that Yu is hiding in the corner, and she starts to panic when they ask her to join them. Heading to the hot spring, Yu questions if they're really okay with having her, and Charlotte says they are all equal today. Meanwhile, as girls do what they do in the shower, the boys are on the other side, imagining them getting freaky with each other. One of them gets so worked up that he straight up jumps to the women's side, so the girls send him back after beating him to a pulp. As the boys salute their fallen comrade, the girls become wary of their antics. They notice that a mist is forming around the hot spring. On the other hand, Tepe asks the boys to take a detour for their next operation, which involves crawling to the other side of the hot spring to watch some plot. However, as they get closer, the mist becomes thicker, and Tepe gets separated from the others, who apparently fell into holes in the ground, which were there to stop peepers in the first place. Now by himself, he marches forward, but soon steps on mine. Meanwhile, the girls spot a shooting star, and Seika suggests they make a wish on it. Just then, they spot another shooting star coming their way, and it turns out to be Tepe, who was flung by the mine. Later, the boys get scolded for peeping on them, and Yu tells Tepe she would have shown him the good stuff if he had just asked, much to everyone's surprise. After the insults, Seika takes them to the game room where she challenges the boys to a game of table tennis. They match Tepe up with Sylvia since they are both very skilled at fencing, at which somehow transfers to table tennis when the game starts. Tepe uses a cheap distraction to score the first point, stating that everything is fair in such games. In retaliation, Sylvia pulls out her jugs, which immediately makes the boys shift into high performance. Following that, they spend the next few hours playing several games until the boys are all knocked out and asleep. Meanwhile, the girls are in their room, and Sylvia can't remember the last time she slept with another person in the same room. Yu, on the other hand, hasn't had such a comfy and fun atmosphere before. Seika then says this was not the party she had imagined, but she still had fun, so she will officially announce Tepe's acceptance into the club next week. Their conversation shifts to how Tepe has brought everyone along, and Seika is grateful because he solved her biggest problem in just a few days. Seika then asks Yu if she would really show him his melons if he asked, and Yu says it's part of her job as a maid. When they ask Sylvia if she would really marry him, she says she's fine with being friends as of now. Charlotte, Sylvia, Seika, and Yu all have a good opinion of him, so they believe he might choose one of them as his wife, and when he does, they agree not to hold grudges. A few days later, the Arima automotive guys return with another bike, which now has legs, and Tepe immediately rejects it again. At school, he notices Charlotte walking in front and covers her eyes, but she correctly guesses that it's him because she can smell that filth from a mile away. As they catch up, Sylvia secretly watches as if her dog had died and remembers the conversation she had with the girls during their trip to the hot spring. After she leaves in anger, Alfred breaks in from the window, and after seeing Charlotte with Tepe, he says he put his life on the line to save her from a pig like him. However, Charlotte declares that Tepe is her beloved, which causes Alfred's brain to short-circuit. He believes Tepe is trying to pump and dump her precious princess and start chasing him, but Charlotte takes Tepe's hand and starts running. Eventually, the old geezer runs out of breath and slows down, allowing them to get away. Outside, they joke about how Alfred is already pushing 70, but Charlotte believes he'll live well over 100 at this rate. Charlotte then notices that she twisted her ankles while running, so Tepe carries her in his arms, which makes her cookie moist. Tepe apologizes for making her run, but she says she always wanted to eat at Arima Hills, so if he treats her, they'll call it even. Tepe then takes her to the infirmary, and after she is taped up, they notice red petals falling from the sky. They look up to see a blimp in the sky, and a man jumps out of it with a parachute. As the main cast gathers at the Society Club building's roof, the man spots them and lands there, thinking that they are here to welcome him. Sylvia recognizes him as Hartman, a businessman from Charlotte's country, and immediately he gets on one knee to kiss Charlotte's hand. Yu tells the girls that Hartman trades with the Arima Group, and he currently has a large investment with them. Hartman then addresses Tepe and reveals that he is actually engaged to Charlotte, much to his shock. That evening, he thanks Seika for showing him around campus and says he will stay in Japan for a bit because he needs to discuss some big plans with Ishin. He kisses Charlotte's hand before leaving, but it is obvious from her reaction that she's not happy with this engagement. Sylvia asks Charlotte why she never told her about Hartman, and Charlotte says she didn't want to bring it up, so she walks away upset. To clear the air, Tepe asks Charlotte if she's ready for dinner at the Arima Hills, which immediately makes Charlotte happy. She hugs him and asks when they can go, and Tepe says he'll let her know soon. That night, Sylvia hears her father having a heated conversation with someone on the phone, and when Maria joins her, she tells her to stay quiet. As Sylvia hears more of the call, her reaction turns from curiosity to horror. The next day, Charlotte puts on her happy face and enters the club hall, only to find Sylvia all by herself. Sylvia tells her to drop the act and explain herself, but Charlotte keeps pretending that she has nothing to say. When she realizes Sylvia is not in the mood for games, Charlotte apologizes for not telling her about her engagement. Once again, Sylvia says she is not interested in her engagement, but rather the fact that both their countries are colluding to create nuclear missiles. Vincent didn't know until yesterday, and Charlotte promises that her father doesn't know either. Sylvia knows a third country is responsible for this, and y'all know it's the land of opportunity. Just then, they spot Seika at the door, and she casually walks in, saying she heard everything but promises not to tell anyone. She also tells them she got some secret info that something will happen at Arima Hills tonight. Later, Charlotte gets a text from Tepe, who asks her to come to the Arima Hills because he has something to share. She immediately heads out to meet him, but someone is watching her from the shadows. That night, while Tepe is making a reservation for Charlotte, he sees Hartman and his assistant Josephine. As he leaves to say hi, his phone vibrates, but he misses the notification. When he returns to the desk, someone texts Charlotte using his phone, telling her to meet him in 1 hour. Meanwhile, Hartman meets Ishin to have a private meeting, but Ishin invites Vincent to represent his country. The meeting then begins, and the men discuss the alliance between their nations. Hartman then admits that someone from his country colluded with another country to make nuclear weapons, and this was done to destroy the friendly relations between the two countries. He then apologizes to the other two for letting this happen and promises that he will investigate the matter. Meanwhile, Charlotte sneaks out of her room to meet Tepe and barely dodges Alfred. Back at the meeting, the boys discuss potential traitors among their ranks, and Hartman even adds that he had taken measures to keep this information private, but someone from the inside leaked it. Soon after, Charlotte arrives at the Arima Hills and makes her way to the room, only to find it empty. She then calls Tepe, who is practicing sword fighting back in his mansion. Yu points out that his phone is vibrating, and he sees several calls from Charlotte. When he calls her back, she is about to pick up, but the lights at the Arima Hills suddenly go out. Moments later, Tepe gets a text from an unknown number, telling him that his lover will soon join his parents at the hotel. The security quickly takes action to fix the problem, but they are suddenly taken out by a low-budget Call of Duty Bravo squad. Everyone from the receptionist to the chefs is held hostage at gunpoint, and soon enough, The gunmen make their way to the meeting room. Before they can process it, Hartman's assistant Josephine steps up and reveals herself as the mastermind behind this betrayal. Ishin secretly calls Yu so she can listen in, but Josephine catches him in the act and tells her men to silence him. Ishin, however, tells her to go easy on his old soul because he might be more useful alive than dead. On the other hand, Yu calls the security head and learns that, other than Arima Hills, everything else in the country is good, since the systems are down at the hotel. They can't really say what's happening in there. Meanwhile, Charlotte is pinned down by one of Josephine's men, but he soon lets her go, and his subordinates are taken aback by how gorgeous she looks. He then calmly explains that they'd come on a mission here, and if she does not resist, nothing will happen to her. Charlotte agrees to cooperate, so the guy tells his men to tie her up, but their brains malfunction because all the blood is rushing to somewhere else. Afterward, Charlotte asks them why they caused a blackout, and one of them tells her that the Arima Group is not everyone's favorite. She also questions if they were the ones who called her here, but they refuse to share their mission with her. They tell her again not to interfere with their job, or they will have no choice but to eliminate her. The goons then play the news broadcast, which covers the blackout at Arima Hills, but there is no mention of a hijack, much to their frustration. It is all thanks to Seika, who had asked her grandfather to keep it undercover. Back in the meeting room, the goons tell Josephine that someone is hacking their network, which makes Ishin chuckle. Turns out, Yu and her girls aren't just for getting pumped, but rather they are expert hackers. Yu is trying her best to secure the Arima Hills network of their secrets don't fall into enemy hands, but the other side is doing the exact same thing to bring the company down. In this battle of typing speed, Yu manages to access the camera feed and finds both Ishin and Charlotte held hostage. In mere seconds, their access is cut by Josephine's hacker, who sends a virus into Yu's computer, giving her merely 10 minutes before she permanently loses access. In that moment, Tepe declares he's going to the hotel to find out what the enemy wants. Yu warns her that it's dangerous, but he tells her he's got the main character plot armor, so he'd be fine. Since he's made up his mind, Yu decides to help him by notifying the security unit so they can lend him a hand. Outside, he comes across the automotive guys and their weird bike, and despite his better judgment, he ends up taking it for a ride. Before he leaves, Sylvia suddenly appears, saying she is aware of what's happening at the Arima Hills, so she is coming along with him, and he doesn't have a choice. After changing to a biker outfit that barely holds her Jupiter-sized melons, she tags along with Tepe, but they are soon chased by Josephine's biker gang. When they start shooting, Sylvia uses her sword to deflect bullets, but when it gets too much, Yu calls her and tells her to press the blue button. When he does, the legs on the bike turn into missiles and take out two of the bikers, leaving just one behind who is also defeated when his walnuts are cracked. Back in the hotel, Charlotte asks the kidnapper why they're after Arima, so he decides to tell her his sob story. Turns out he was born in the slums and could see Arima's big building from his home. This building seemed like heaven to him, compared to which his life wasn't so bright, so now he wants to cause some trouble in paradise. Soon after, Tepe and Sylvia enter the building and find some guards drinking like they're on vacation. Before they can take them out, Yu informs them that she's taken the virus out, which means they've regained control of the whole network. She then tells them where Ishin and Charlotte are held, after which they quickly move to take down the guards. Despite their discretion, the enemy becomes aware of their presence and starts shooting at them, so Sylvia suggests they retreat. However, they find a whole squad with riot shields at the exit, and their leader introduces himself as Katayama, the leader of the security unit who has come to help. Soon after, Seika and her girls hold a mini concert near the hotel to distract the media. Inside the meeting room, Josephine sees her plan falling apart, which puts her in a bad mood. Hartman tries to play the hero and takes her down, but his stupidity gets him shot. On the other hand, Charlotte tries to resonate with her kidnapper by explaining that instead of causing destruction, they should try to understand each other. The guard laughs at how naive she is, and despite her best attempts, she fails to come to an agreement with the man, as Seika takes Tepe and Sylvia on her helicopter. Yu locks the building and guides the security team inside, helping them regain control of the building. In the meantime, Sylvia jumps out of the helicopter to secure the landing spot, allowing them to land safely. In the meeting room, Josephine orders her men to take Hartman's body to the next room and then reveals that she is part of Prus, a group built to humiliate orgs like Arima. She then orders her men to retreat, but the guy holding Charlotte informs him that they've installed a bomb here before leaving. By the time Tepe and Charlotte arrive, all the goons are gone, so they head straight to the meeting room, where they learn of what happened to Hartman, worried for Charlotte. Tepe rushes to the room where she is held, but luckily she is safe and sound, still thinking about the conversation she had with the kidnapper. When she hears Tepe in the halls, she screams at the top of her lungs, and the man is able to find her room. As soon as she sees him, she holds her tears back and starts smiling, but Tepe quickly pulls her in for a hug, allowing her to cry in his arms. On the roof, Isshin thanks Seika for saving them and offers to lend a hand with her company whenever she needs, which makes her happy. However, she hides it by saying she only came to help Tepe, which makes Sylvia laugh. Back in the room, Charlotte tells Tepe about the bomb, and Yu suddenly detects several pulses on her screen. Soon after, the lights go out again, leaving their fate uncertain. Yu soon informs Seika about the bombs, so she takes everyone out of there, except for Tepe and Charlotte. She also tells them that she was able to counter most of the virus attacks, but some of them slipped through, and now she cannot unseal the building. She has located at least 5 bombs in the building, and if they were to go off, the incident would not go unnoticed by the media. Seika wants to go back to rescue them, but Vincent suggests they find a way to get them out first. Inside, while Tepe and Charlotte look for a way out, the latter acts cheerful because she knows Tepe will find a way out. Just then, Josephine contacts them through the radio, stating her wish to drag down everyone who is living the rich life. She then tells them to enjoy the explosive dinner she has prepared for them before ending the call. In the meantime, Seika and the others join Yu as she makes unsuccessful attempts to regain control of the system. As a last resort, she suggests reformatting all the data on the servers, and while it will remove the virus, it will erase all their previous records. Isshin then asks how long it will take for this whole process, and Yu tells him 15 minutes at max. The old man gives her the green light to do it, saying that data is not as important because he has a backup in his mind. Just then, the security team locates the bombs and informs Yu that they only have 25 minutes before the fireworks go off. After marking their locations on the board, Yu tells the girls that while the security team can deal with the first 2 bombs, the next 2 are too far, so Sylvia decides to help them. Vincent asks if she is sure, and she says Charlotte is her precious childhood friend, while Tepe is rocking 11 inches in the trunk, so she'll put her life on the line for them. Seika says she doesn't want her to get all the credit, so she tags along with her. After they leave, Yu mentions that they still have 1 bomb left, so she asks Tepe through the radio to take care of it in time. After Tepe accepts, she gives the command to reformat the data, and Tepe immediately rushes to locate the last bomb. On the way, they come across the 2 idiots who were thirsting over Charlotte, and apparently, they were left behind by their crew. Charlotte immediately recognizes them and uses her charms to win them over. But when they start imagining her as an OnlyFans model but East-ranked jugs, Tepe knocks them out and moves forward. However, their path is blocked by a shutter, so Yu suggests breaking it down because the detour will take a long time. Tepe strikes it with all his strength, but it won't budge, so he decides to use his sword, which hypes Charlotte up because she's thinking of a different kind of sword. He takes a swing at the shutter with his wooden sword, but it breaks and almost hits Charlotte in the head, leaving her stunned. Meanwhile, Seika tells Sylvia she can't play the fiancé card with Tepe, but Sylvia strangely thinks it's the best time to talk about her dead mother. She explains how she never cried at her death, even though she was sad, and she doesn't want to feel the same way with Tepe. Back then, she could not save her mother, but now she's strong and has the chance to save Tepe, which in other words means she loves him. Seika admits she also likes Tepe, and even though he makes her want to pull her hair out, she somehow finds herself attracted to him, as they are bonding over their shared love for Tepe's sausage. Tepe is trying his best to pry the shutter open, while Charlotte dances in the background to encourage him. When he asks for her help, she pulls out a chainsaw from a nearby store, and they use it to get past the shutter. Back at base, Vincent and Isshin discuss Hartman's passing, saying they must share the news with his country, but they should let Charlotte do the talking. Isshin believes people will still find a way to make Hartman a bad guy, even when he was an honest man, and that's the cruelty of this world. Just then, Yu wipes the virus from their networks, and the power is restored in the hotel. As all teams make their way to their bomb sites, Charlotte and Tepe run into the man who kidnapped her, and she takes a shot at them. Tepe quickly covers Charlotte up, but the man tells him he has a personal grudge for someone who became a billionaire overnight, so his next shot won't miss. Tepe stands firm and puts out his broken wooden sword, and surprisingly, he deflects all the bullets and manages to take the man down. In the meantime, Sylvia and Seika work on defusing their bomb, but since they have to take a 50-50 guess on which wire to cut, Sylvia decides to take her time to think. With only 20 seconds left, Seika gets nervous and flings the bomb into the air, and Sylvia cuts the red wire, which stops the bomb. When Seika asks how she knew the right color, she says she made a guess because her plot armor is also red today. On the other hand, Tepe finds the bomb in the last 10 seconds and throws it down the trash chute, and Yu tells him that it was wise because it is made of solid steel 7 inches thick. With everyone safe, Yu takes a sigh of relief, and Isshin thanks her for saving everyone. However, you and the other maids are humble and grateful that they were able to perform their duties. At the hotel, Charlotte meets up with the rest and is super happy to see them safe. But the mood changes when Sylvia breaks the news about Hartman's death. Charlotte says she didn't like him at first, but she eventually accepted him as her husband, and now that she knows he died protecting Ishing and Vincent, she's finally come to realize that he was a great man. Immediately after, a driver shows up to pick Charlotte up, explaining that he hasn't told Alfred about the hijacking because he'll lose his mind. Charlotte then says goodbye to her friends and heads home, unaware that the driver is actually Hartman, who somehow made it out alive. Shortly after, a limo parks in front of the hotel, and Yu jumps out of it to hug Tepe, which makes Reika jealous. As Vincent embraces his daughter, Ishin steps up and formally thanks Tepe for saving them. He then informs them that Charlotte's escort will arrive soon, but Tepe reveals that she has already left without her driver. Ishin says Alfred himself was coming to pick her up, and that makes them realize she's been kidnapped again. As Tepe sulks in the rain, Hartman abruptly stops the car, lets Josephine enter. Before Charlotte can react, Josephine puts her to sleep. Later, Sylvia distracts herself with fencing, Seika copes by bossing Erika and Ayano around, and Tepe locks himself in his room. He feels like a failure for not protecting her, and then recalls the debrief last night. Ishin realized that Hartman actually fooled them all with this elaborate plan, and since Charlotte is possibly overseas by now, Vincent advised the young ones to stay out of it. At present, Tepe holds a picture of his family and recalls Charlotte telling him to remember her as he remembers his parents. The next day in school, Mezu keeps annoying Tepe to cheer him up, but Tepe leaves the room before Mezu's soul leaves his body. He rides his bike and visits the place where he first met Charlotte, and being there reminds him of all the good times he spent with her. He then goes to Arima Hills, where he recalls the moment they shared in that room. He did not realize it then, but now he understands that he has made a place in his heart for Charlotte. Meanwhile, Charlotte wakes up on a train with Hartman sitting in front of her. She then notices her hands are tied up, and Hartman calmly explains that he is going to crush the Arima Group and eliminate her beloved Tepe, much to her horror. She asks what Tepe has to do with all of this, and he tells her Tepe is Arima's successor, so he must go down with the ship. Charlotte asks him why he wants to destroy Arima in the first place, but Hartman leaves the cabin without explaining anything. Two guards enter the room, and they are the same old gooners who have grown a soft spot for her. Charlotte uses their feelings towards him as a weapon and makes them untie her, after which she demands they bring her takoyaki. Meanwhile, Yu informs Sylvia that Charlotte is held hostage at the state guest train, but even when the source isn't fully reliable. That is all they have for now. That evening, Tepe returns home and is greeted by Seika, who scolds him for skipping school and asks if he has found a way to save Charlotte. Tepe says it is outside their hands now as Charlotte is leaving the country, but Seika gets upset and rebukes him for giving up so soon. Despite her yapping, Tepe continues to feel hopeless, so she suddenly walks up to him and locks lips with him. Just then, Sylvia comes out of the mansion and slaps Tepe, telling him that he should be ashamed of himself for giving up so soon. She cannot believe he is the same man who crossed swords with her and resolved the 50-year-old conflict between Ishin and Seika's grandfather. She then tells him Charlotte is currently going through Russia, and her final destination is her home country, Filmish. She adds that she is going to her country, Hazelrink, to save her with or without Tepe's help, but the man still won't budge. The girls then tell you that Tepe has lost his family jewels and is now an angry feminist, so he'll need a good maid to take care of him. Later, as Tepe is sulking in depression, Yu visits his room and shoves his face into her lap, telling him that everyone has heard about losing Charlotte, but there is still time for them to save her. Tepe finally speaks out, stating that her tone is softer than that of the other two, and asks if he can stay like this a little longer. Meanwhile, on the train, Josephine is slapping her kitty in her private cabin with Hartman, but the man is so focused on his mission that he leaves her drenched in more ways than one. Meanwhile, Charlotte is playing cards with the guards and learns that she's heading to Hazelrink. She then starts throwing a fuss that she hasn't showered since yesterday and manipulates the guards by promising to show them what she hides under the plot armor. At the same time, Sylvia tells her dad about her plans to save Charlotte, but he tells her that he'll go in her place and she should stay here to support Tepe. However, Sylvia holds her ground, insisting that saving Charlotte will be the best way to support Tepe. Vincent agrees to take them back, but on the condition that they come back to Japan and settle here. On the train, Charlotte is taking a shower while the guards are waiting outside, eager to get a glimpse of her forbidden fruit. Just then, an angry Josephine storms into the shower and takes out her frustration on Charlotte for getting her daily dose of Hartman hot dog. She then joins Hartman in his cabin and informs him that she leaked the information about this train as he had asked. As he waits for Tepe to take the bait, Tepe takes one last look at his family photo before leaving to rescue Charlotte. He soon meets Ishin, and the old geezer knew he'd come because he's like his mother, who wouldn't sit quietly in the face of justice. In response, Tepe tells Ishin that he and his father are alike, which explains why his mother married him. Ishin then gives him 1 million yen, stating that a common man has to work hard for several years to have this much. He then asks what Tepe would do if he had 600 million yen, and Tepe says he'd start a business and donate some to the poor. Ishin says he knew someone who tried to double his 600 million and fell into ruin, explaining that the more money you have, the more you get lost. Even though Tepe does not understand him now, Ishin still advises him to value his wealth as much as he values his life. Handing him a sword, he imparts more words of wisdom to Tepe, while Yu listens with a sad look on her face because she knows he's about to go on a dangerous mission. After Tepe leaves, Ishin turns to a somber Yu and asks if she is sad about Tepe leaving. Yu says she is just a maid and it shouldn't matter, but Ishin tells him he has always looked at her like she's his daughter. He doesn't know how to comfort her with the world, so he embraces her like a father figure, allowing Yu to confront her feelings. Soon after, Tepe is preparing to leave on a private jet when Mezu starts annoying him, causing Erika and Ayano to stomp on his face, which definitely makes his glizzy excited. After they drag him away, Seika is left alone with Tepe, who tells him to say something because she usually never shuts up and keeps swearing at him. Seika gets annoyed and calls Tepe an idiot for going so far, but then she starts blushing because she's now in love with him and can't even pretend to hate him. She nervously asks if he would do the same if she were kidnapped instead of Charlotte, but before he can answer, she pulls him in for a tight hug, telling him never to come back. However, Tepe knows she's saying this out of care, so he calmly says bye and starts walking away. However, he lets her know that he would go to the end of the world to save her, and Seika admits that bro is radiating main character energy. Inside the plane, Yu is doing her magical computer thing and pulls both Ishin and Vincent in a conference call. She then gives them a brief about Charlotte's location and destination before detailing their plan. She also seeks assistance from Alfred in the rescue mission, who is eager to win over Charlotte by being the hero. Meanwhile, inside the train, Charlotte throws another tantrum about getting bored and uses her charms to control the guards. On the other hand, Josephine informs Hartman that Tepe has taken the bait and their plan is going smoothly. Soon after, Tepe lands in Filmish and meets Sylvia, who has somehow become the captain of her cavalry unit. Tepe asks her for details, so Maria runs in and says Sylvia defeated the previous captain and took his role. Vincent then formally welcomes them to Filmish and reveals he has arranged a small party for them. That night, Tepe joins Sylvia and mentions how it feels to have a party in such serious times. Sylvia says her father has a habit of throwing a party during hard times because of his social standing. However, ever since her mother died, Vincent has not thrown a hot spring party. She then shows him a picture of her mother, and Tepe says they both look the same, which flatters her. He also recalls that he met Sylvia for the first time at a party like this one, so to relive those moments, she proposes another duel. As they swing swords, Tepe asks if she's happy to be back, but she says it feels new to her. Tepe says he was born in a place where you could see the power cables and train racks, but he loved it even then. Sylvia says her country has many issues, but similar to Tepe, she loves it too. As Tepe is distracted by Charlotte's thoughts, Sylvia quickly charges him and beats him again, but she asks him to forget about this duel because she likes strong men, and he isn't leaving a good impression. Following that, she locks lips with him, leaving the man wondering if he should whip out his other sword too. The next day, Yu informs them that the train will soon pass through Filmish, but it is a short time frame, and they must rescue Charlotte during that time. Back on the train, Charlotte and the guards have become friends at this point as they continue to play games. In the end, Charlotte realizes she is not much different from them when it comes to being a human, and it is possible to bridge the gap through love and friendship. Unbeknownst to her, Sylvia and her whole cavalry are waiting atop a hill and use a speaker to address Hartman. She asks the man to stop the train and release Charlotte, but Hartman ignores the command because he thinks Filmish isn't strong enough to stop them. As Sylvia sends her men forward, Hartman notices Tepe riding with the train on his bike and tells the men to speed it up. Charlotte notices the increase in speed and runs out of her cabin because she knows her beloved has come to save her. As Sylvia strikes the train with a mortar to put a hole in it, Charlotte reaches the window and realizes that instead of Tepe, it's Alfred riding the bike. Alfred soon jumps up onto the train and takes out a few guards, while Tepe waits for the perfect time to strike. Yu had told them that Alfred would have to be bait for Tepe, who would enter the train using the hole caused by the mortal fire. Tepe follows the plan and takes out the driver to slow the train down, while Sylvia and her men approach the train from the rear. Hartman realizes what's going on and sends Josephine to fetch Charlotte, While Alfred is blocked by a dozen men at the door, Josephine captures Charlotte and brings her to the front, where they meet Tepe. With no other choice, Tepe is forced to lay arms, and the train goes back to full speed. Josephine then pushes Charlotte into Tepe's arms, saying that even though Hartman wants her alive, she is gonna unalive her anyway. Before she can take a shot, Hartman appears and shoots Josephine in the back, which was not the kind of back shot she was expecting from him. Hartman calls her a bother for not following the plan, further stating that having her alive after the mission would have been a loose end. After finishing her off, he tells Tepe that he used to be a pickpocket when he was young until one day he was caught by a rich man who embarrassed him in front of dozens of people. That man was none other than Ishin, so Hartman made it his life's mission to bring that humiliation back to the old geezer. He then tampers with the controls and releases the entire back part of the train, causing Alfred and Sylvia to be separated from them. He then turns to them with his gun, saying that he will take everything from Ishin, but Tepe quickly takes action and defeats the guards as well as disarms him. However, Charlotte gets pushed out of the door in the meantime, so he has to drop his weapons and quickly catch her. Using this opportunity, Hartman shoots Tepe and sends him flying off the train, while Charlotte makes it back inside safely. In Japan, Seika is sitting all by herself on the roof, and since she's worried about her friends, Erika and Ayano decide to give her space. Mezu joins them for some paperwork, and when they ask what he's doing here, he gives a whole monologue about how he's trying his best to be part of the main cast. The girls slam him into the wall, reminding him that this is a super secret mission, but when the whole campus arrives inside the hall to help, they realize this idiot told everyone about Charlotte's kidnapping and the rescue mission. Eventually, he convinces Eriko and Ayano to let the others help, and they agree, though they still kick him out of the hall. Meanwhile, Seika is still on the roof, wondering if she should have gone with Tepe. On the train, while Charlotte watches in horror, Hartman says he did not hit Tepe's body. He then reveals she's coming to Hazelrink with him, where he will tell Ishin about his grandson. After he lets her loose, Charlotte tries to slap his face, but he grabs her arm, revealing that he plans to tell the world that Tepe had kidnapped her, and he was the one who saved her. Charlotte says no one will believe his lies, but Hartman calls her knave, and tells her that those desperate fools will believe anything at this point. Charlotte tries to reason with him, but he says it's useless as her words don't affect him. At last, she requests that he provide Josephine with medical care as she might still have a chance, but he refuses. Charlotte argues that Josephine loves and cares for him, but he tells her to help on her own if she wants. Charlotte then carries Josephine on her back, telling Hartman that she wants to save Josephine because if Tepe were here, he would do the same. Meanwhile, Tepe wakes up in Sylvia's arms, who is riding in the backseat of the bike Alfred is driving. Turns out he simply passed out from the sound of the gunfire, and Alfred was able to catch him in time. Since they can't catch up to the train with 3 people riding, Ulrich suggests Tepe get off. Tepe, however, plays rock, paper, scissors with him and ends up winning, so Alfred stays behind crying his eyes out. Back on the train, Josephine is breathing heavily, so the gooners from earlier offer to help, revealing they actually went to medical school, which makes her feel relieved. Meanwhile, Tepe contacts Yu, and she helps him find the shortest route to catch up with the train. As he gets closer, some of the guards spot his bike and report to Hartman. Meanwhile, the gooners are operating on Josephine and reveal they can save her life. Charlotte asks why they left medical school, and they revealed that they could not afford it, so they found this job instead to make a living. Charlotte starts to feel useless in this situation, but they tell her that her emotional support is very much needed, which makes her feel better. Just then, she hears that Tepe is alive and exits the cabin, but Hartman slowly starts tailing her. When she gets to the window, Tepe leaves the bike in Sylvia's hands and jumps on the train. Charlotte notices this and starts running towards the engine room, while Tepe uses his sword to disconnect almost half of the cabins, including the one where Josephine's being operated on. Hartman soon catches up to Charlotte, but Tepe shows up too, and they come face to face for a final showdown. Hartman promises to finish him off for good this time, and while Charlotte is worried, Tepe tells her to relax because he's got plot armor. Tepe then confronts Hartman about the time he was caught stealing and was insulted by Ishin. However, Tepe believes Ishin was not trying to humiliate him, but rather asking him not waste his life becoming as successful as he is. Hartman is in denial and takes a warning shot at him, stating that the next one will be between his eyes if he keeps talking. However, Tepe doesn't know when to shut up, and he keeps yapping about how everyone is human, despite being rich or poor. Tepe knows Ishin saw potential in Hartman, which is why he wanted him to rise to this level so they can be on the same page. Tepe credits you for teaching her that the only person accountable for your life is you. From Seika, he learned that working on yourself can open up opportunities, and Sylvia taught her that honest words will be met with understanding. This is what pushed him to explore the purpose of his existence, and he wants Hartman to do the same because they're on the last episode. However, Hartman puts out a remote and blows the train instead, and Charlotte quickly runs into Tepe's arms amid the chaos. Hartman wants to go down and take them both with him, so in the last moment, he admits that he was the one who murdered Tepe's parents. Despite being completely shaken, Tepe says Charlotte taught him to continue loving those who are precious to him and keep them alive in his heart. He declares that his parents now live within him, so he decides to forgive Hartman for everything he has done. He then quickly dashes forward and disarms him, asking him to do what's right. When the man continues to act like a brat, Tepe smacks him in the face and tells him to restart his life before jumping out of the train with Charlotte. Luckily, Sylvia catches them both, and as the train explodes, Alfred somehow gets a hold of Hartman. However, since he was hoping to catch Charlotte instead, he tosses Hartman into the river. Finally, Yu is able to take a sigh of relief, and Maria brings her tea to make her feel better. Vicente then calls Ishin to let him know that everyone is safe, although Sylvia still hasn't decided where she will live. On the other hand, Charlotte is extremely happy that Tepe came to save her and gives him an early taste of what's to come for him later. Seeing them go at it makes Sylvia's loins burn, and she calls them indecent idiots on the top of her lungs. Back at the club hall, Seika breaks the news that the rescue mission was a huge success, which calls for a celebration. Soon after, Josephine wakes up and finds Hartman sleeping at her feet, sorry for what he did to her. A few days later, Tepe and the girls return to the club hall and are welcomed by Seika, who immediately drags him in, scolding him for being late. Once inside, Tepe takes turns dancing with Seika, Sylvia, Charlotte, and even Yu. Later, he learns from Yu that their mission came at a cost, and they have to pay money to everyone involved for the damages. Tepe feels that simply paying them is not right, so Yu suggests he formally apologize to them too. Later that day, he goes to all three girls to apologize for any damage he caused, and they all tell him not to worry about it. Who should Tepe choose as his bride? Let us know in the comments below. If you want more recaps like this, subscribe to the channel and leave your suggestions in the comments.